Hello, if you're in the chat, hello.
We just watched Beetlejuice with the family.
Oh, it's Stubbins. Hey, Stubbins.
If anybody's out there and can hear me, Stubbins, if you're out there, blink twice. Wait, no, that's not going to be useful.
Blink. Rapid blink.
All right. Yeah. You ready to get into it? Tyler, any business before we actually start?
I mean, always business. I don't know.
Probably being unfrozen.
Oh, am I frozen? Can you hear me?
Oh, God. Tyler's frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear. We can hear you. You're just frozen.
Yeah, you might be shattering a little bit.
Oh, no.
What do you mean shattering?
Well, he's pausing
Yes.
for long periods of time.
Can you hear us, Tyler?
Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. So it says my upload is at 30%.
Yeah, no, the delay's real bad.
Okay.
The delay is horrible.
All right, folks, hang on. I'm going to
prioritize your network.
I'm going to do that now. If that doesn't immediately fix it, I may have to go reboot my router. My internet has been bad all day.
Yeah.
It's because they routed all of your internet to my house. That's why.
You know what we also might try to do is see if we can change the recording location. I don't know if we can do that or not, but
I have
if
no
we
idea.
could, it would be on your end, Tyler. Like check the settings or something.
Recording.
Oh, wow. I'm also uploading slower than usual. I don't know if that's on mine. How do I sound? Do I look and sound okay?
Yeah,
you look good. You sound good.
Okay.
If anything, I feel like your voice is maturing in a way that I don't know if you've ever sound better, Ash.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm working on my radio voice.
Dan is listening to this in the future going, what the hell are you people doing?
We love you, Dan. I hope the wedding is good.
Honestly, I hope they go through with it.
Was that in doubt?
No, okay,
I mean,
look. I don't know if I've told this story here before. I worked with a guy and I happened to miss his wedding and I ran into him like 2 weeks later. I'm like, how's married life going? He's like, it didn't work out.
Oh.
And I thought he was joking because I didn't actually think that this happened and I was wrong.
Yeah, don't you hate that when someone tells you earth-shattering news that you think is so depressing that it has to be a joke? And then you laugh. And they're like, I'm dead serious. They're like, I feel like a jerk now.
Yeah, it was absolutely just like the clue should have been there were other people at the table who I think already knew the news. And so they're like, when everything turns into the Last Supper and like everybody is leaning away and looking away, that should be the clue that you're like, I have stepped into a quagmire and I need to extricate myself instead of being like, hee. Ugh. Yeah, that stuck with me. I don't know if that surprises anybody.
No, that is rough.
Yeah.
I mean, feel for that guy, huh?
Yeah, seriously.
All right, guys. My upload speed has improved dramatically. Do I look and sound any better?
You sound better. You're no longer frozen, but you still look like you're in witness protection. So it's fine.
I mean, I feel like that's just kind of the baseline.
You are also hella delayed from your visual, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I listen to your voices. I don't read your lips anyway.
Is the audio in front of or behind the visual?
Behind the visual.
Yeah,
that's annoying.
No. I'm sorry. I hear what
you
say. I hear what you say first, and then I see what you're saying.
Okay.
All right. There's basically no latency between us. It's just that your video is coming along thereafter. If I knew which of the pixels that's your mouth to look at, I could probably read your lips later.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. Luckily, this is an audio medium.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the RPGBOT.Podcast. I'm Randall James, and with me is Tyler Campstra.
Hi, everybody. I'm one of several pixels.
And Ash Eli.
Y'all ever get the sense that there's just too many people in the world? Because I do. Especially in LA. Like, I'll just go down the street and I'll just be like, there are too many gosh darn people in this world, and I would like it if there were less.
Yeah, what's the line from Mitch Hedberg? It's like, you can't please all the people all the time, and last night all those people were at my table.
Yeah. So we're talking about too many players at the table. That's what we're talking about.
Not too many players. It's doable. We can get this done. It doesn't have to be too many. But in order for it not to be too many, you're going to need to think about several things. You're needing those folks to think about it too.
Ironically, it is an issue I wish I had. I have the opposite problem.
Yeah, so sometimes Ash just sitting at a table GMing for himself.
Pretty much. That's what it feels like, honestly.
I think they call that writing a book.
They do. Although there are some systems out there now that you can just play solo. I'm just saying, what is the point? Play a video game.
No, I mean, it's still fun. It's like it's the collaborative storytelling. You're just collaborating with dice and yourself.
You're not collaborating, then you're doing improv with more steps. That's it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
not all of us have friends, Ash. Actually, future podcast episode though, single player systems. Let's table put that in our pocket.
Yeah.
Bold of you to assume I have friends, sir.
That's fair.
All right. So we kind of already hit this, but yes, premise of the episode tonight is running games with large parties. So your typical game is going to be about 4 players and the DM or GM. And that'll fluctuate up and down for a lot of people, but we're talking about like unusually large, like 7 players, 8 players, more, like getting up to the point where it's like, maybe we should just split this in half, that sized. And we're going to look at all of the problems that comes with and hopefully come up with some solutions to address them.
All right. So where does this number start? Let's take our favorite dungeon fantasy games. Let's take PF2 5e. At what point do you start considering a table a large table?
I was actually talking about this with some of my friends, and we kind of agreed that
you don't have any.
It was a joke. Anyway, you are familiar with the concept of sarcasm and humor, right, Randall? I know it's a difficult concept for you to grasp, but
what? All right. You're talking with your imaginary friends about how many people are too many people. Keep going.
So, yeah, we agreed that 3 to 4 is like pretty much the ideal number for any D&D game. Past that, I would say max 5 is what I think I would recommend most GMs to cap their games at, and 5 is kind of pushing it. Anything more than that, it gets really overwhelming. And I can speak from experience, as my caption will handily tell you. At one point, I ran a game with about 9 people in it at a certain point.
People?
Yeah, it was way too many people. Fortunately, that wasn't the whole game. Like, we had people filter in and out of that game. It averaged out at about 7, I would say. Like, the lowest I ever had in that game was 7. So it was still a very large game. Don't recommend.
All right, Tyler, I want to ask the same question of you. How many folks do you think is too many folks for PF2, for 5e, these style dungeon fantasy games?
6, honestly.
We're aligned then. I think we're all on the same page. And Ash, I do agree with what you say. Like, even at 5, 5, if you don't have the right structures in place, if you're not running the game the right way or thinking about the right way, 5 can bog it down. I think 6 can be hard. And that is the purpose of this episode, is talk about some things that can make it better.
Stubbins makes a great point. As a professional DM, they said you've DM'd for a group of 8 strangers on one hand, chaos, but on the other hand, money. So yeah, I can speak from my perspective as well as a professional DM. Yes, it's great to have more money, but I would say after a certain point, the quality of the game goes down, and then you get players asking whether you're actually worth the money or not, especially depending on what your price is. Like, if your price is, say, $10 to $15 per head, then I think you can justify having bigger games because, yeah. But if you're charging $25 to $30 per head, the quality needs to match. And it becomes almost fundamentally impossible to run a game that feels like every character is getting the spotlight and attention they deserve in a game that has more than 5 people in it. So I guess it's your perspective. If you just want to get as many people as possible to get more money, I think that's a perfectly valid way to do it. And you think you can handle that, that's great. I personally can't handle that because my brain shuts down after a certain point. But yeah, I think, and that's going to be the big disclaimer on all of this episode. Your mileage may vary. We're only talking about what is big for us on this podcast. If for you 6 is totally doable, then that's great. Tell me what witch you made a deal with, because I want to talk to her. If 8 is also feasible for you, you must not be a human person. But I'm very impressed. But yeah, so what's big for us might seem small for other people. So please take everything we say with a massive grain of salt.
Yeah, I ran a one shot about a month ago for I think 9 people in my office, but it was a one shot. It was a long-term commitment, and I had people on rails. Like I was like bang, bang, bang. Honestly, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about as advice for making this work were the things that I was doing live. I had a player in that game that also plays in my regular game, and he joked afterwards that me running combat with those 9 people goes faster than playing with our weekly group because of the things that I was doing. He was actually like, honestly, like, oh, you just bring this home. Let's do this every week. And so after this episode, I'm going to bring this back to it's like, everybody just listen. Apropos of nothing, I suggest everybody in my regular game listen to this one episode.
Yeah. And, it can go the other way too. Some people, I know some people who their ideal number of players is 2. So more than that is overwhelming for them. So like I said, your min, your max is going to be different. But I think that the things that we're going to talk about, just pretend like we're talking about what is within your realm of like what you would classify as a large group.
All right, cool. Well, let's get into it. I guess before we step into this, we're talking about, we all kind of gave our estimate. What do we think a large party is? 5 is getting there. 6 is there for us. That's our thoughts. Let's talk about what are some of the problems that we run into running a game for a large party.
One of the biggest problems I've had running for large parties is just the amount of distractions. Like people get bored, they start looking at their phones, they start stacking dice or whatever else. And when you've got 8 players sitting around the table, all introducing distractions, things get off the rails almost immediately.
For me, my 2 biggest complaints having run big games. 1, it makes it hard to give everyone an equal share of the spotlight. Now, for some groups, that's perfectly fine. Some players don't want to be in the spotlight. But at least for games that I run, all of my players expect to have some focus on some of their backstory. And that was kind of challenging to make sure that everybody's backstory got a chance to shine in such a massive game. The other problem that I ran into is this is a problem that I think you'll run into with very opinionated and extroverted people. A lot of conflict in terms of like disagreements and crosstalk and stuff like that. It's just more opportunities for people to argue with each other. When you get more people into a room, there's just more potential for disagreement. That's just statistics. And so, especially when I was co-DMing an evil game, that was a huge problem. Was pretty much every single session that me and my co-DM ran of that game, there was an argument. And it was not a sort of clarification of rules. It was like a heated, this might kill the game argument where people were at each other's throats. So
miserable.
It was awful, and it was draining, and it made me not want to. At one point, I considered not running D&D anymore because it was such a toxic environment. And I think the problem was that 1, it was too many players with two strong personalities that had different ideas of what they wanted out of the system, and 3, it was an evil game, and it just was a better environment for toxicity and argument one could not have asked for. But obviously, that's just one experience. It's not going to be a blanket experience with these things. But I will say, you put more people in a room, there's just more opportunities for them to disagree with each other or talk with each other, as Tyler said. And there's going to be too much distraction. But those are my main problems.
So I think you both covered a lot of what I care about. Maybe the thing I'll bring up is just like combat bogs everything down. And when you're in exploration mode and as a GM, you're telling a story and people can engage, people can talk through ideas. It's a little bit easier to have that free-flowing conversation that still feels like you're moving a story forward. As soon as you enter combat, all of a sudden now everybody has to take a turn. Everybody's going to get a turn. And if people aren't ready to take their turns, if people aren't sure how the mechanics work, if they're not paying attention to what's happening in the combat, like the state of everything, because the state's already large just with the party, combat can bog down to the point where it takes an hour to get through, 5 rounds of combat. And every session, if you're having more than 1 round of combat, you're basically eating whole parts of your session. And so it shouldn't surprise anybody at home. We're going to talk a little bit about exploration and social interactions, we're going to spend a lot of what we talk about here, things that you can do to make combat go faster. Before we step into this, I posed my question, Dungeon Fantasy, how many folks are too many folks? Let's talk through it. With that large party, folks who want to play a TTRPG, how do you pick the right system?
I would say simpler is better. As you said, with certain amount of players, combat can be bogged down significantly. In games like Pathfinder 2 or Pathfinder 1, where everybody has a lot of buttons to push and a lot of things they can do, it slows combat down to a crawl. Yeah. I ran sessions, even in just 5e, with 7 players, where that was the entire session was the combat because of how slow it was. We're talking like a 4-hour session. So not an insubstantial amount of time to one combat, not like multiple combats, one combat. So doing something like that with like Pathfinder 2, where there's a lot of buttons, like I said, Pathfinder 2 combat is inherently slower than 5e. And it's just going to be exponentially worse for every player that you add, which is why Paizo's verbiage kind of goes off of the assumption that you're going to have 4 players and no more. Because when you do more than 4, the math kind of breaks a little bit and you're just making the experience worse for people.
Yeah, I do want to say, like, some parties, GM plus the party, everybody loves that. Like, if we never had to have story and the only thing we had to do was roam from room to room and town to town murdering people, that's all we'd ever do. Great. In that case, still, you can make your combat more efficient so you can kill people even faster.
And
okay.
Yeah. What is character optimization for, if not optimizing how quickly you murder?
Yeah. All right. So let's talk into it. Let's talk through like expectations and behaviors, the things that we should all be thinking of. This isn't just for the GM. As a GM, session 0, share these tips with your players. All right. First of all, time is finite, right? You have a set amount of time that you're going to be able to bring to a session. Think about the things that you can do outside their session. It's a lot of fun, for instance, like, hey, everybody, you leveled up. Do not spend the beginning of your next session actually doing that level up. Everybody do it offline. It's fun. Go around the horn real quick. Hey, what'd you get? But constrain that to a small period of time. Similarly, if it's some of the backstory, some of the downtime things, these are things we've talked about in past episodes are great to do offline. Have a Discord where you talk through these things.
Yeah, this is great for like if your characters have leveled up or if you had a shopping session or any of those things like that. That generally doesn't need to happen live. You can figure that out between sessions.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the counting should be done away from the table because that's just going to bog everything down and bore people. It also means that I'm a big fan of creating characters together at session 0. I just think that is fun and has a way for players to relate to each other's characters and establish relationships. You can't really do that with groups like this because that session will go on forever. I will say, and this is gonna feel like it's coming out of left field, but if you want a good clue as to how to run a large campaign with this many people, a good resource is Critical Role because they have 7 players. I'm not saying, and I know this is advice we want to avoid, be more like Matt Mercer, guys. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, because that's an impossible task. I'm saying look at how he runs those sessions, what he prioritizes to get ideas, because even in Critical Role, I still think there are episodes that drag a lot because there's a lot of people who want to do a lot of things. But just watch, don't pay attention to what everybody else is doing. Pay attention to what Matt's doing and how he chooses to like cut a player off and move on to the next thing. So if you're going to do this, you need to have a good sense of timing and flow and know when a player has reached the zenith of what you think is acceptable of time. And that might mean that you upset some players. Matt is fortunate that he has a really wonderful group who's very supportive of each other. That won't always happen, but you just need to be able to have the wherewithal and the stones to just be like, okay, you've done enough. We're moving on now.
Like, thank you for that wonderful contribution to our game. Now moving on to literally anything else.
Yeah.
It's also really important to pivot when things start getting dry or boring. Like, the rest of the table does not want to sit around while one player and the GM interact while that one player like makes sourdough or something tedious. Like, I don't need that.
I love sourdough. Don't use that as an example.
Look, I will eat sourdough, but I do not need to narrate in detail the process of making it fictionally.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, going back to Critical Role, there's a perfect example of that too. In the early games, when they were still figuring stuff out, there was a character named Tiberius, who's no longer part of the game, who spent an entire session, 45 minutes, doing chores and errands that were so mind-numbingly monotonous until all of the players at the table basically had to say, "You're done, okay? You're done."
Jeez.
So, yeah, don't be that guy.
Wait,
No.
did the player get kicked off, or did they killed the character?
I don't want to go into all of the drama that Orion Akaba was. If you want to know more detail about Tiberius and kind of how the toxic player Orion Akaba was and all the drama that went behind the scenes, there's a great video for that on YouTube, but that's not what this podcast is about.
Okay, I will go to the internet and I will satiate my curiosity later.
It's called We Need to Talk About Tiberius. Just type that into YouTube. I forget the YouTuber's name. He does a great job of saying exactly what went wrong there and what lessons can be learned from that player.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. As the GM of this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to what are some of the expectations and the behaviors that we want to manifest when we have a large table. We talked a little bit about time is finite, much like the time that we've been making this podcast. Another thing to think through, and exactly towards the point that you're making, Ash, is, we are a network, right? If there's 8 people, then you can imagine drawing that web of the relationships across all of these people. In a small session, in a small setting, at a small table with like 3 folks plus a GM, you can develop all of those relationships organically. You can spend the time without bogging things down. Recognize you cannot do that at a table with 6 people. You will bog everything down. We will never be able to settle it. And so with that, just recognize that that is not what you're going to be doing at such a large table. You have to avoid this idea of main character syndrome. As a GM, you have to avoid the temptation of investing heavily in like 1 or 2 players' backstories because you're probably going to left other folks feeling left out. I do want to call it out. One of the folks in our chat, so Stubbins, proposed this idea of having folks partner up at the table. So imagine if you have 6 people, having them form 3 groups of 2 each and build each other's backstories off of that. You can imagine them then having a natural way of doing that storytelling, bringing their backstory out as part of their role play. And so what are we really doing? We're minimizing the connections in the web to allow us to explore, to have fun, and have established relationships without bogging down the table, developing it any further.
I think that's a great compromise to do, because then you're treating both players' backstories as one character, and it definitely lessens things and it makes people feel more included. It's also similar to the advice that we gave in the playing an evil character is have a tether, because that just it allows you to work off each other and not rely so much on what the DM puts in front of you. Yeah, and I think this is a situation more than anything. I know we always talk about how the importance of having a session 0. If you're going to run a game, session 0 is not optional. It is non-negotiable. You need to have a session 0, because this is a thing where you need to be able to communicate with people. Like, okay, we need to be aware of each other's time. I'm the final arbiter and the final say so, but remember that this is a large group and that we all want to feel included. So I need you to help me police yourselves. So if you feel like you're taking too much time and you feel like there's tension around the room, probably taking too much time. Wrap up whatever you're doing, or I will do it for you. So yeah, I think more than anything, like just to harp on what Randall said, time is finite. Time is the most valuable resource in any D&D game, and it is even more precious in a game with so many voices at the table.
Like even just doing some very, very basic math, like Randall, we play 2-hour sessions roughly. We have 6 players. So if you just divide the amount of time available in the session, there's on average 20 minutes of spotlight time for each player. So like if you monopolize time, you very, very quickly start eating into everybody else's fun. And like, yes, you're not only having fun during those 20 minutes where everyone is staring at you, but it still illustrates the point that like, this is a very, very finite shared resource. You need to be respectful. You need to be disciplined about your own behavior.
Now, I will say there's some nuance here. It's like we have folks in our game who don't want to do a ton of role play. They're maybe not as uncomfortable engaging in this part of it. They come along for the ride. They have fun. They're really there for like, they enjoy the combat and they enjoy the general camaraderie of the game. If you know you have people at your table, in this case, it's a little bit of a benefit because you know you don't have to shove them into it. Just make sure one-on-one you're checking with those folks. You're making sure that they still feel engaged. that they're getting what they want out of the game, because occasionally people's desires, change over time. And they might want to get a little bit more of that spotlight. Ash, I want to come back to something that you said a second ago. You were talking about policing yourselves, having discipline in how you approach the game. And I really want to dive into that a little bit. Taking it one step further, avoiding side conversations, avoiding distractions, having some medium that is not, if you play online, like voicing in Discord, but is instead maybe having a text channel where you can talk to one another and you can have those side conversations going, but not letting it become a distraction. And if you find that it's becoming a distraction, having players have the discipline to bail out of it.
Yeah, I would argue this is a problem that is exacerbated by online games more than in-person games, because with in-person games you can see each other. The sort of talking over each other is minimized somewhat by being able to see another person's face and gauge their reaction and when they look like they're about to talk. Whereas online, unless you're using webcams, you don't have that luxury. And so the crosstalk becomes almost unbearable. And again, this is a good point where, especially if you're going to get into these arguments and disagreements about rules and stuff like that, we don't have time for that, especially in games like this. So you need to communicate to your players, I will take criticisms or suggestions on my rulings one time. And then if I disagree with you and I say, no, this is the way we're doing it, I need you to drop it. Because if you keep arguing with me over a ruling that I have made clear that this is what we're sticking to, you are wasting my time, you are wasting everybody else's time. And that's not respectful, and it's not fun for anybody else. And yeah, related to what Randall said about having discipline as a player, the number one thing that I would encourage players who are going to be part of large games is please know your characters and what they can do. Don't come to the table not understanding what your spells or your class does, especially when you've had all this time with these long battles and we get to your turn, you're just like, oh, what do I do? I don't know what I can do. Now, DMs, a way that you can help that is that I think is really good is if you know a player's turn is coming up next, just say, okay, so Jess, you're up, then you're on deck. So that gives Ben a heads up if his mind was wandering to like, oh, I need to figure out what I'm going to do on my turn. So that when we come to Ben, he knows what he's going to do and he doesn't waste time thinking about what he's going to do.
Yeah. And pointing and maybe reminding folks of the scenario too, just in case they happen to get lost in it. Like, Ben, you're up next. And don't forget Frank is down, for instance. Or there's one guy who started to flee the scene, like that little bit of clue of like, okay, I'm looking at the screen, or if it's theater of the mind, it's, honestly, this is even worse. Being able to set that tone of like, these are some of the problems that you can deal with might help them then focus what they're looking for on their character sheet. One of the things that came up, we were talking about this in our Discord, and stuff from our Discord pointed out like 100% make a cheat sheet for yourself. If it's 5e, what bonus actions are available to you? What actions are available to you? Having a quick reference to know like what saving throws are good for you. What are the things that you have that make somebody do a saving throw? If this creature's AC seems to be like super high and I know I'm going to miss if I do anything with an attack roll. Cool. Can I make them make a saving throw? Having a cheat sheet that helps you figure that out quickly is great. Pathfinder, you can do the same thing. Knowing it's like, what are my 2 action? What are my 1 action steps? That way, when you're working out the economy, I don't need to move this turn. So I'm looking for a 2 action and a 1 action. What am I going to do? What's available to me?
Yeah, cheat sheets are not just for DMs. They're really useful. Use them, abuse them. A few other tips that I think really help speed up combat and keeps people engaged. I think I mentioned before, active initiative, like not just the initiative where everybody rolls once and then you can kind of check out. Initiative that changes all the time where people have to nominate who goes next, kind of like the Cosmere RPG, that kind of stuff can really keep people engaged and actively paying attention to what's going on because they don't know when they're going next. Whereas with a normal initiative, they know that if their turn's not going to come up for a while, so they can just kind of tune out. The other thing that you can do to speed up combat, it seems simple, but I found it works really well. Roll your to hit dice with your damage dice at the same time. Because that just immediately speeds up combat. It's not just, does that hit? Okay, I need my dice, hold on. And then I roll it instead of just like, does that hit? Okay, 12 damage. And then you're done.
We'll spend more time on combat later in the episode. Like there's a ton more you can do there. But yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. This is just a brief summary of what you can do.
Okay. This gets back to Tyler's point that he was making earlier about like there's really only so much time available. be thoughtful. As a player, be thinking about like, well, how much of the spotlight have I taken in this? And if you feel like, okay, I'm probably overreaching, being willing to give that spotlight up and let folks go. Partnered with this, be decisive, make decisions quickly, don't hem and haw. If you turn every episode into a shopping episode, or if you spend 30 minutes to try to decide whether to pull the left lever or the right lever, you're going to drive everybody crazy. It's going to bog everything down. Like, let's be willing to make a decision and go so that the game can continue. Absolutely. And finally, at a meta level, I feel like this one's critical. The same way that more people gives you less time to focus on character development and growing relationships. In the real world, more people makes it less likely that everybody can make it to a session.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
If you have a 3 or 4 person party, if you have a 3-person party, your attitude might be, if anybody can't make it, we'll skip this week and we'll come back. And you're counting on people to hold that time in the calendar. We have 6 players in our game. We play if 2 people are missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As a GM, what I do is if we're hitting major story beats and people can't be there, I might stick in just a little bit extra, or I might see if I can just do a little bit of lore building. I'll take us in a different direction for a little bit, because it is nice to get people. But if you have somebody that's like, oh, I'm going on a 2-week vacation, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to play. Like, don't blow 2 weeks worth of time. You might have to go through that story beat and catch those folks up offline. Be willing to play down a player, especially as you start to get to 6 or 7 or 8 people.
Yeah. One of the things you can do to handle that situation is you can either have a convenient excuse for why that player is there, like why that character isn't there. Like for me, I lucked out with Planescape because the characters are glitched. And so whenever a player can't make it, I just say they glitch out of existence for this. They'll be back. Works really well. But
you don't even acknowledge it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other, you don't have to do that. You can just be like, they're just not here. But the other thing that you could do, like, especially if you've created an encounter that is balanced for a certain amount of people, have players take over the other character's sheet who knows how to do it and run those characters for you. If nobody knows how to do it, you can do it yourself. But as a DM, you already have enough to worry about. So I prefer to have another player do it. If a player's unconfident, another thing you can do is what's called Jaegering, where 2 players play the same character together, that one character. So it's like both of them are doing 1.5 characters rather than 2 characters.
But my concern with that, though, is that it potentially is going to bog down the game worse than actually having that player there. But when we get into combat, we'll talk a little bit about like ways to think about balancing combat. I hear that, and I think at the right table with the right players, I recognize that could be a good idea. I think for a lot of tables in this situation, just being down a person, but as a GM, remember, you have to scale back the combat encounters versus what you were thinking if you were fully staffed for that session. I do want to share a line from the show notes because I think it's fun. The scheduling monster is the highest CR hazard in the game.
Yeah. So the subject of how to handle absent players' characters, like we have a pregame survey on RPGBOT.net that's been up there for like 8 years. Very, very little change has been made to it because it still holds. Yeah, the options I present are like the character just doesn't show up. Somebody drives the character, like all those options, like the things that are obvious. In a large party, personally, I would say avoid running multiple characters just because like someone's not there. We have an opportunity to remove some of the complexity from the game for the session. We should take advantage of that. Granted, there are cases where you really can't afford to do that. Like, oh, this is the only person that can cast healing spells in our very, very large party. We kind of need them.
Don't get stabbed.
Again, I'm not saying this is a thing you should absolutely do. I'm saying it works for some tables. It's worked for me in the past. And with 5e, it's not a big deal if you're down a player, whatever. Balance is not a thing in 5e. But in a game like PF2, being down a player is massive.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, you need to know what you're going to do. And sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but I don't always get like 24 hours notice that someone is not going to make it. I get like maybe 10 minutes notice. And asking me to go through all of my like dungeon that I have prepped for 5 people in Pathfinder 2 and rebalance it, that's not possible. So I'm not saying this is an amazing suggestion, and people are free to disagree with me, but I'm saying that it is a fine compromise to have 2 players operate a single character. That way it's not relying on one player to do 2 characters. It's relying on 2 people working together. So each person takes like half. That way players can still survive an encounter rather than it going from a modern encounter to a potential TPK. No one wants to be the cause of a TPK because they couldn't make it to a session. That sucks, and nobody wants to be that guy.
Yeah. All right, so let's step into it. So we talk about the three pillars of tabletop RPGs. We have our exploration, our social interactions, and combat. A few brief words on exploration and social interactions, and we're basically going to spend the rest of this episode talking about optimizing combat for large tables. Sounds good, folks at home?
Sounds good.
Great. So exploration, this is a problem that I run into. You think about the typical knowledge checks that you're going to be making, or maybe checks to manipulate things in the environment as you're exploring. The problem that I have is like, if it's literally like, oh, there's a door that is locked and we want to see if we can get past the lock. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to look for a key. I'm going to try to pick the lock because I have thieves' tools, like on and on and on. There's 6 of you. One of you is going to manage to not roll like garbage. And I hate this. I'm tempted to just say it's locked, but you're able to get through. But then that removes the fun of people having the opportunity to roll dice to actually do something interesting. So that sucks too. So how do we handle this? Where with 3 or 4 people, there's a reasonable chance that, nobody does this and we have a little bit of conflict and we're going to have to work our way around it. At 6 or 7 or 8, you're probably going to succeed.
Yeah, just the sheer number of throwing D20s at things like raises the average roll enough that almost any challenge becomes trivial. Randall, I think something you've done in our games actually works really well. Like anytime there's a check where everyone could theoretically roll, you always say 2 people get to roll. No one questions it. It works great. Like our 2 highest modifiers roll, and regardless of the outcome, we're all satisfied that the party has contributed.
Yeah, no, that works.
Yeah, I have liked that, and it has felt like a good compromise. The other thing is like giving the players the option of choosing who's going to do it. And I feel like you folks kind of adjudicate that pretty quickly. Like everybody's pretty quickly calling out their numbers if they're good. We're getting our 2 and we're going. Stubbins in the chat asked an interesting question. So if you might only let one person roll, and if a second person says they want to try instead, what Stubbins is recommending is basically saying, cool, I'll let you try. What are you going to do that is different than what the first person did? And that's an interesting way of handling this as well. That way you're getting different ideas. And if the person can legitimately think of something, you can let them try. The other thing I can imagine you might do is even modify the DC. Like, that's a really good idea. I'm going to make this a simpler DC than what I was thinking of previously, because I think that is legitimately more likely to succeed. So I want to call out in PF2 and 5e both, we do have actions that we can allow to help us through this. In 5e, rereading the 2024 rule for help, I think it's very similar to what it was in 2014, if not exactly identical. If you're proficient in a thing, whether it is a tool or a skill, you can basically just take an action to give free advantage to another player using that tool or skill. So even though not everybody at the table is helping, if you could say, well, I'm proficient with that, I would like to give you advantage as you attempt to do this, the party's working together, but you're still only having the 1 or the 2 dice rolls. Similarly, in PF2, we have the aid, and aid is interesting because you can make things worse. And so you could imagine at a table, every time anybody goes to do anything, one person says, I'm going to roll, and everybody else at the table says, I'm going to use aid. So 7 people are rolling for aid. But here's where it's limiting, and I actually like this. On a critical success, the largest bonus you're typically going to get, especially at lower levels, is +2. If the person helping happened to be master or legendary at that skill, +3 or +4. At that point, I would question, why aren't you the person rolling for this? But that's besides the point. And so it isn't like you're going to get some huge advantage. The most you're going to get is +4, which is big, 20% extra likelihood of success. But if anybody fails, you're getting that -1 circumstance penalty. And don't forget multiple circumstance bonuses. If multiple people succeed, it's not actually additive.
Yeah, and that feels realistic. Like, you go to pick a lock, and somebody else who knows how to pick locks comes over and is like, hey, also try this thing. But then, like, everybody else in the party looks over your shoulder and they're like, try stabbing it. Like, just random useless advice, bunch of people in your ears. Yeah, it's mostly going to make things worse.
Yeah. And so encourage at your table. I do, like Tyler said, I've been doing this for a while and I feel like it's worked well at our table. Only 2 folks are rolling. But if you feel like you want more opportunity for folks to participate, remind your players that they can aid, but get them good at making their aid rolls quickly and clearly to figure out what the overall bonuses and penalties are going to be.
This also goes into a topic that we haven't discussed in depth, but I think can help with it, is, we talked about having loud voices at the table. But the problem with large amounts of groups is you also have quiet voices. People who in smaller groups might be forced to interact and contribute more. But because of, like, say they're introverted or they're just not as assertive as other people, they get lost in the crowd. They get lost in the shuffle. And you don't want to neglect those either as a DM or a player. And aid can be a way to prop those people up. If you see a player that feels like they can't find a way to contribute in a way, just be like, oh, hey, Jeff, you're pretty good. Like, you're not amazing at stealth, but you're pretty good at stealth. Well, do you want to help out Ben with his stealth or whatever? That's a way you can do it. And also as players, it's important for the DM to communicate with players to be like, just try to prop up those people who are a little less experienced, a little less social, give them opportunities to play with each other, which is where I think Stubbins' idea of pair bonding people with each other really shines. Gives people an opportunity to prop each other up more.
Cool. I want to call this out. One of the things that's going to happen at a table where you have 8 players, we always talk about the standard adventuring party, and we can sub people in and out, right? There's many different ways to build a defender. There's many different ways to build a caster. There's many different ways to build a face. When you get to 8 people, you're going to have duplicates. Even at 6 people, you're likely going to have duplicates. You're going to have multiple coverage. And so in exploration and in social interactions, be willing to let those duplicates shine simultaneously so they get to take advantage of the character they built and the party gets to benefit from it. A great, example of this in social interactions. If you have 2 faces, let 2 faces play. Let them play off of one another. Let them interact with the NPCs. Let them set up the party for success. Ultimately, I think that's going to be a lot more fun. Don't get into situations like, oh, no, you can't butt in this conversation because we're engaged over here. I'm talking to the face over here. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let folks play.
Yeah. With large groups, 2 faces can kind of talk over each other. Just have them work together.
Yeah.
Although that being said, rivalries between 2 faces can be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get into ye old time sink. Let's start talking about combat.
Yeah.
It is time intensive, and every time you add a player, things get worse. Now, this may be what your table is there for. So it sounds like we're kind of like, so much combat and it's going to take so much of the session. Your table legitimately might love it if every minute of every session was just combat. We still think you can get through combat faster, let it flow more easily, and then have more combat. And if what your table loves is combat, what they're going to love even more is more combat. Honestly, a lot of tips that we're going to call out here, it's going to work for your 4-person tables as well. So let's get into it. And I think maybe before we start talking about the individual tips, I want to call out the reality of the action economy for 5e and for PF2. In 5e, we have the action, we have the bonus action, we have the move. In PF2, we have 3 actions, which can sum up to any number of things. The reality is, if you've got this really cool boss monster, and that is the only other creature in the combat, 6 players versus that 1 creature, it's 18-3 actions per round. The action economy is going to suck with single creatures at large tables.
Man, I could not disagree with you more. And I've tasked my players about this, one of the most fun encounters I've ever run in any game was a boss fight with it was like the penultimate boss of the campaign. 1 person, lair actions, legendary actions against 6 players. And they had a great time with it. I will say you have to do a lot of adjustment to make it work, but I don't think it's just like, this is just blanketly impossible. We can't even put this into the realm of possibility that this will be fun. I don't think that's true. I think you can make any encounter fun. You just have to work with it. And the way I made it fun was I had intricate lair actions. I used the geography against the players. I also had it helped that the boss had a ton of health and also had 3 phases where she would change into different things and the entire mechanics would change and what she could do would change. So the players had a great time adjusting on the fly to be like, okay, how do we know how we handled her in her humanoid form? How do we handle her in ice dragon form? And they had to adjust to that. And it was a lot of fun. So look at Mythic. Yes, it was 5e stuff. Look at Mythic monsters. That's where I got the idea from. It can be very fun. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by completely taking 6v1 encounters off the table. You just have to do some adjustments.
Yeah, no, and nobody's saying that you should take them off the table. And in fact, in the show notes, that was my big call out, is one of the best ways to make 6 versus 1 work 100%. Add legendary actions and reactions.
Yeah.
I didn't put layer actions in that list, but you're right. We should have layer actions here as well.
Mhm.
Because now what you're doing is you're putting the action economy not back in favor of the monster, but you're moving the action economy to being more balanced, which is going to make the combat encounter more fun, more real for the players, as well as for you, the GM.
Yeah. That being said, I do think that it's tougher to do in Pathfinder 1. I mean, Pathfinder 2. Pathfinder 1. It's tough to do in Pathfinder 1 too. But in Pathfinder 2, just because Pathfinder 2 monsters don't have legendary actions or lair actions, which I wish they did, but they don't. And the other problem with Pathfinder 2 is solo monsters require them to be of such a higher level, especially if you have so many players, that it becomes almost impossible to hit them and just isn't fun to do because their AC is so ridiculous just to challenge them. So I feel like that's one of the weaknesses of Pathfinder 2 is you can't really do solo encounters with large groups.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on the math issues there. Like the guidance is frequently party level +4 for a solo boss fight. So that's expected to be a very deadly encounter. The creature attacking the players is going to crit very frequently. The players are basically never going to crit. Incapacitation spells are just out the window. The creature's saving throws are going to be really high, so the players are going to have a lot of trouble affecting that creature. And sure, like if you've got 8 players, someone's going to get lucky and be successful, but it's going to be so much time spent just trying to do something and failing over and over again.
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of solo monsters, and it's one of my complaints about Pathfinder 2 is that you can't use them as much in Pathfinder 2. I will say if you're going to use solo monsters and you're not dealing with a large group, player level +4 is too much. Don't do it. I would say 3 max. Yeah, 3 higher than the players is still a pretty decent challenge and still going to be harrowing. 4 is frustrating, especially because your players are going to be missing most of the time. So, and players don't like missing.
Yeah, we had a lot of people missing the other night, but that was not encounter design. That was everybody literally rolled garbage.
No, I mean, that'll obviously happen, but I'm just saying the problem with doing a monster +4 player level is I think the math is you're going to be missing like 60 to 70% of the time. It's ridiculous. So just don't do it. Yeah, +3 is fine for most encounters. I would say it's good. And if you're looking for a more challenging encounter than that, add more monsters. Don't increase the level of one monster.
So yeah, I was actually going to suggest I suppose I am going to suggest the opposite. 2 to 3 monsters. I would say to keep combat moving smoothly rather than going to 4 or 5 monsters. Be willing to move 1 or more of them using the elite template in the new player core, which effectively is like raising their level by 1. I've been, for our campaign, I've actually been making basically every creature in every encounter elite, and some of them have been tough. I think I'm going to back off of that and start saying like, one of them will be elite, the others won't. And I think figuring even that out will probably be a little bit of meta fun for the players at the table. But the reason I'm making that argument is that, like you say, that creature is a little bit more likely to crit. That creature is a little bit more likely not to get hit. And when hit, it's less likely you're going to crit them. Adding another creature or even 2 creatures to the party is adding just that many more actions per round. And I think ultimately bogging things down more potentially. So I'd be worried about having like 6 to 8 players at a table plus 4 to 5 creatures in the combat, unless this combat. So for instance, if it's like the culmination of an arc, hell yeah, let's spend 2 sessions here. Let's design the encounter. Let's lay out the grid. Like let's have hazards in the area. Like let's make it fun and make it a thing and memorable. But if it's more, mundane combat as we're just advancing the story, I would bias towards keeping the 2 to 3 creatures, adding that elite template to make one of them a little bit tougher. And ultimately, that should provide a reasonable experience for the players.
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise between the 2 options.
I agree.
All right, so we've said, right, the action economy is going to be tough. There's just a lot of actions to get through per round, even from the players before we ever get to these monsters. That doesn't mean that we can't run combat efficiently. So let's start talking through some of the things that we can do. And the very first thing that I want to call out, not every combat encounter has to lead to death of the enemies. We talk about this all the time in different contexts. Intelligent creatures will flee. If you're fighting ruffians and you kill 2 of them, the 3rd will use their action to flee. Right? If the party wants to like shoot pot shots at them, let them. That's fun. Play it fast. Just tell everybody like roll it for me. Okay, great. If the party wants to chase them, just stare at them. Just eyes. This isn't what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue that I've run into is when I've had monsters run, players want to chase them down. So
Yeah.
it is what it is. I think, Wing Lane brings up a good point. Another way you can do this rather than just having creatures flee, just make them minions. Just have them die to like one hit, and that's all you have to do. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. I think if you can find a way and you can communicate with your players like, hey, don't chase them down, we're moving on, then that's great. But it's also like asking players to run away from a battle. Players want to kill things. They don't want to run away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree 100%. If you can find a way for your enemies to exit, do so.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of ending encounters early. The shin kicking right at the end of an encounter, the last round where everyone's just like, okay, the enemies have single-digit hit points. Someone please just hit them. It's not fun for anybody. Doesn't make things better. Just call it, have the enemies run away, or just declare them dead at the first opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we talked about this in a previous episode. If it's down to one person who is easily going to die in the next round or two, just be like, okay, yeah, we're going to fast track this. You guys kill him. He's dead. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. The other thing is that in the right setting, characters can also yield or creatures can yield. Like if you're fighting humanoids, it's like, I don't want to run away, but I do want to give up. At this point, it's very reasonable to exit combat. Even if your party's like, cool, we execute them. Okay, I guess that's, we will deal with that later.
But wow, that was messed up.
We had this the other day where the party actually spent a little bit of time debating about whether or not they were going to, and they wound up actually arresting the person and sending them to be jailed in a larger city. And I gave them that out. And so we were able to resolve it without doing another round of combat and having to get all the way through it. In the right setting, that's another option. And wrapping it up back to that high level thing, not every encounter has to end in the death of every single enemy. Being willing to exit early, or Ash, towards your point, just streamline, like, okay, they are dead, but you had it. I know you had it.
Yeah, I mean, the other issue with that is also that there are monsters that explicitly don't flee from encounters, like undead. But another way you could deal with that is like if they kill the main necromancers or whatever, the most of them, you can be like, the rest just disintegrate. So there are ways around it, even with creatures that wouldn't necessarily flee, because some creatures don't have a self-preservation instinct. So
yeah, like my players and their characters.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. Like every time I've put an encounter in front of players that I expect them to run away from because it is tuned way above their level, they're just like, I would rather die.
Kill me. You won't. Another thing I'll call out here is that you can design encounters, like we were talking about before, this idea of like, this is the culmination. We want this encounter to be memorable. It's okay that there's lots of creatures participating because this is the culmination of an arc that like, it's going to stick with the player. It's going to be meaningful and impactful going forward. Designing these encounters where maybe there are actions to be taken that are not directly combat actions, whether that be manipulating something in the environment or whether it be like sustaining something, outside of the combat. These can be interesting. Like one example that I want to give is, let's say you're in the BBG's lair, you found the stash, and the army is coming, and there's a couple folks in here that you could be fighting. If the GM is giving you the clue, look, you're going to be surrounded and probably taken prisoner if you're not out of here in like 3 rounds. What do the players do? Do the players focus on fighting the view guards that are here, or do they spend some of their actions trying to get loot? And I think if you're going to do something like this as a GM, you have to be willing to give them really good loot on a random table to make it worth their while for them to participate in this. But in doing this, having this sort of thing, you're taking actions out of their action economy or giving the players the choice of where they want to invest those actions in exchange for what is effectively creating a more fair combat session, given that the enemies are going to be outnumbered. Another example is you might need them to like manipulate a gear or manipulate a lift, because ultimately for us to get out of here, somebody has to be turning this crane.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to... We good? Okay. Yeah, we haven't even gotten to loot distribution.
Yeah.
Which
more things happen offline.
Yeah. It can be a nightmare. Even just like remembering to give enough. It's just, I don't know.
No, it's hard, right? Like, and having enough meaningful items is going to be difficult. Part of that is letting people make those wishes. What are the things that you're looking for as you level up? What are the things that you're progressing towards? and just making sure that you regularly provide the opportunity to keep that covered. But as we talked about at the top, this is a fantastic example of something you really ought to be doing completely offline.
Yeah.
It's also worth saying not every combat encounter has to be super challenging. Being willing to go in, half the players get a turn, you kill the one thing and we keep going. That can still be satisfying. I don't think that breaks anything. Feeling like everything has to be meaningful and impactful and it needs to last 3 rounds is a great way to lead into the shin kicking that we were saying that we really just don't want the party to have to suffer through.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. If you want to have the thrill of combat without eating a ton of time, a 1-round encounter is absolutely fine. Just get in, 100%. Get out, do it quickly.
100%. We talked about at the top, being willing to continue to play if you're missing 1 or 2 players. I think that's where, as a GM, you also have to have some mechanism essentially dialing the combat back. We talked about before in PF2, I was saying that what am I going to do? I'm going to toss in maybe 1 elite. I'm going to up them. If I'm missing 2 players and we're back down to 4, maybe I don't do that for that session. It makes it an easy mod. This, of course, it makes a lot of sense if you're using published modules where you have recommended encounters that you can be using. Essentially, I'm missing 2 people. I'm going to take the encounters as they come. If I have the full party, I'm going to use that trick where I'm adding an elite or 2 elites into the encounter. That's an easy way of doing the balancing in PF2. In 5e, I think it's a little bit harder. I think you wind up having to play some games like tossing in additional monsters to keep things interesting, or doing things like adding legendary or layer actions and just having the party understand the way that I'm balancing this is I'm moving the action economy into the creature's favor slightly. And then again, when you're missing players, maybe they just happen to run into things that have fewer of these kinds of actions.
Yeah, another thing that players can do to help speed up things, avoid certain character options. I know people want to play certain characters, but you have to make compromises. So if you're not confident in your ability to play or understand a class with a high complexity, pick something else. Yeah. Also, I'll just say it, please don't pick a pet class, please.
Yeah.
There's already enough. There's already enough things you have to manage. Unless it's so brain dead where it's just he's just going to go here, hit a thing, then okay, fine.
Yeah,
but if there's an option, if there's a way that you can play a class without a minion and you still have fun, I highly, highly encourage players to do that.
Or just at the very least be efficient. Like Tyler in our last combat session summoned a Tooth Fairy, but his turns were the shortest turns of anybody, at the table. Where yes, technically he was burning 4 actions per round in some of the rounds where he manipulated his Tooth Fairy, but they were bang, bang, bang. They were fun. It felt good. It felt natural. I think if everybody's showing up, it's we're all going to be summoners. No, go home. Bring me different characters. Yeah, Ash, I mean, that advice is 100% correct. But if you're doing something, if you're occasionally playing the game this way, where you are summoning something or you have a pet that is getting involved,
know what you're going to do with it.
Have to be efficient. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The chat's bringing up a good point. Conjure animals and stuff like that gets way out of hand. I will say slightly less so with the 2024 rules, where they're now just glorified spiritual weapons and Guardian of Faith or Spirit Guardians. So it's less of a problem now. But I will say, if you're using the 2014 rules, or if you're doing other things that actually summon a creature, don't, please. Or at least know exactly what you're going to summon. Don't do this bull crap that they did in 2014, where it's just your DM has the statistics for whatever you're trying to summon. It's don't be that guy.
I do not.
Don't be that guy.
There's 8 people at this table.
Tell me what you want to summon and know what you're going to do with those summon animals, or I'm not going to give it to you. Or better yet, just don't do it. Please. Because
Step 1, don't do it.
You will get the DM and every single player at the table glaring at you as soon as you say it. So just don't do it.
I really do want to place a lot of emphasis here on just knowing your character and your character's mechanics. So much time gets wasted at tables when players have to open up a rule book and look up what their own class features do. If you don't know what that thing does in the moment and it's your turn, do something else. I understand that might seem like exactly the thing that you want, but so many times I've seen players absolutely certain that they were going to use this one thing and then read the text mid-comment. They're oh, no, that's not useful at all here. I'm going to go do something else. Great, you've wasted 20 minutes of everyone's time.
This is also just good advice in general. Know what your limitations are and what you feasibly feel like you're willing to do. If you want to play a cleric, that's great. know that you're going to have to research all of your spells, what's good for each situation, and people are going to expect you to use those spells. If you don't, and you don't want to do the work, then maybe you should pick a different class. This is actually, I have a funny story about this. So one of the players I was running, this wasn't a large person game. It was like 4 players, but one of them was a new player, and he wanted to play a cleric, but he didn't do anything cleric-like. It was basically a fighter that just hit things. And so me and B sat down with him and basically had flashcards of all of his spells where we quizzed him. Okay, what does this spell do? What does this spell do? So, I mean, it's funny in retrospect that we had to do that, but he should have just picked a different class.
It's funny. It's like in retrospect, it's like the barbarian that only casts slam with a frying pan, like, but the opposite.
Yeah. I think if you're getting to the point where your players and your DM have to quiz you on what you like with flashcards, what your spells do, that's probably a hint that you should probably pick a different class. I'm just saying, pick a martial. They're simple, they're brain dead. You don't have to think about much. You hit a thing until it's dead. Easy.
That's it. I know we talked about earlier in the episode, but cheat sheets, like 100%. I think there's nothing wrong with not knowing every spell on your list, because we have full-time jobs. 100%, I get it. Make that cheat sheet. Have the things that you know are situationally useful. If you're like, we're playing in Foundry right now. Foundry is absolutely amazing for being able to just pop up content. Similarly, the D&D Beyond integration to Roll20 is also fantastic. Oh, I can't remember what this does. Click. Cool. Doing that in your downtime between turns rather than doing it live is the key. And this is where, coming back to a GM, GMs should be calling out, who's up next, who's on deck after that, so that you can be making sure that given the situation's not going to change that much in 2 turns. Make plans for what you're going to do with maybe the contingency that one more of the creatures falls or one of your players fall.
For folks looking for those rules assistive devices, if you're playing spellcasters, spell cards work really, really well. The remastered spell list spell cards for PF2 are coming soon, and I'm sure we'll get spell cards sometime in 2025 for the 2024 rules. So pick up those things. They help.
Yeah, I think this is an advantage that VTTs have over in person, especially Foundry. Foundry's really good with Pathfinder 2 of having visually pleasing ways of organizing spells that people are easy to keep track of. In person, a thing I recommend for players who get overwhelmed with spells, like Tyler said, get spell cards, but you can also get like a cool little spell book off of Etsy or something that you keep your spell cards in. That makes it interactive, it makes it tactile, and it makes players want to engage with it more. So that's just, especially if you're new, find ways, if you want to play a caster, find ways to make it easier for yourself.
All right, so some things that...
I was looking forward to that question. That's a good question.
We have a question of the week this week. This week, our question of the week comes to us from @SambaDeath. Oh. What is a class you think is way better in 5e than PF2 and vice versa?
I wouldn't say way better, but I would say it is slightly better to play in 5e than Pathfinder 2. I would say wizards are better in 5e than Pathfinder 2, just because of the power level.
Yeah.
And just how easy it is to cast spells and cast really powerful spells. Pathfinder 2, wizards are still powerful and they're still fun to play, but if you're coming from 5e, you might be a little bit disappointed about how casters aren't god tier like they are in 5e. They're good, but they're not like I can do every encounter by myself good. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're transferring from 5e to Pathfinder 2. Now, easier answer the other way around. Monks in Pathfinder 2 are way better than in 5e. It's just this is the fact of the matter. Even with the 2024 rules, which made them better, I still think Pathfinder 2 they have nothing. They don't even come close to Pathfinder 2 monks as to how much fun they are to play. They're just extremely fun, very versatile, a lot of buttons to push. They're also very good, really well balanced. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pose a question here. Do you think sorcerers in PF2 are better than 2024 sorcerers now?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, that would be another one. Monks were the premier choice that I thought of, but there's a lot. I would say sorcerer. Sorcerer's always been better in Pathfinder 2 than in 5e, in my opinion.
Even in 2014, you feel like okay.
Oh yeah. For the simple reason that there's more meta magic options, and I think sorcerers in Pathfinder 2 are just more fun to play than in 5e. Not that they aren't fun to play in 5e. I just think they're more fun.
Now I disagree on that one. I feel like sorcerers feel more interesting in 5e than they do in PF2. In PF2, they feel like just another spontaneous caster, in my opinion. But I get the appeal both ways. Like, I do. I would happily play a PF2 sorcerer, but...
Yeah, that's fair. But I would say, especially with the 2024 rules, I would say Pathfinder 2 is better than 2024 sorcerer. They massacred my boys so hard in the 2024.
I want to remind people of that every opportunity I can. So thank you for this question of the week.
Oh, also
Tyler,
Rangers. Rangers in Pathfinder 2 are better.
Oh, they're so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
Okay, classes that PF2 did better. Fighter, obviously, even with the 2024 changes, like 2024 D&D Fighter is way better than it has been. But fighters are just so interesting to build, and they're so diverse and fun, and they have so many buttons to push in PF2. And they don't even have subclasses. Don't need them. Cool enough without one.
Yeah, no, fighters are very versatile in Pathfinder 2. You can make a fighter be anything you want.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's been the theme of this podcast, though, is that basically any martial is going to feel better in PF2 because the game is better balanced for martials. Let me ask the question. True. Is there a martial in 5e, even in 2024, that you look at and say, honestly, I think that might be more fun than the PF2 equivalent? And the answer is no.
No. 2024 definitely was an improvement for martials over the 2014 rules, but if you want to play play a martial and have fun, Pathfinder 2 I think is better. I would say it's more of it's a rougher transition going from a caster in 5e to a caster in PF2.
That is true. And yeah, Ash, I agree with you on wizards. Like 5e wizards, I like them better than PF2 wizards, I think. But I think I may just be hanging up on rituals. Like, since rituals are more difficult to access in PF2, and I lean really heavily on rituals as one of the things that makes 5e wizards so powerful. So, like, taking that toy away from me makes me sad. I get why I get it. It all makes sense. The decisions all make sense. It still makes me sad.
Now, Steph brought up an interesting point. What about Paladin versus Champion? I would say they're about on equal footing, honestly, because, I mean, Paladins in 5e have Smite, and they have a lot of spellcasting. Champions are more versatile, I would say, in Pathfinder 2, but they're also just they have their strong suits, they have their weak suits. So I would put them about equal footing. If you're going from a Paladin to a Pathfinder 2, you're probably going to have a pretty easy transition, honestly.
Are there weak suits half plate?
I meant weak spots.
I just wanted to get a chuckle out of Tyler, that's all.
Mission accomplished.
Thank you, Yes, Steph, boo him. Boo him louder. What about you, Randall? What do you think? You never
Sorcerer is the one that I wanted to pick on because, they did these things. And then generally, I wanted to continue to beat the horse that playing marshals in Pathfinder 2 is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never had more fun as a marshal than I have in Pathfinder 2. It's a lot of fun.
It's actually a little bit funny because I DM'd our last long form session, and now I'm DMing Kingmaker in PF2. So I haven't been a player in a long form game in getting close to 3 years.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah. I've gotten to play in Pathfinder 2 like twice. I would love to be a player in a Pathfinder 2 game at some point. This is probably never going to happen.
Well, because you're still ramping up your home group from PF1 to PF2, right?
Yeah.
So you're the vanguard, learning the rules and getting everybody ready to make it happen.
I'm the DM. Well, B has promised to run a game for me where I get to be a player in my own world, no less, which will be interesting.
That'll be fun. That'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, folks at home, you know what to do in this moment as we reach the end of a podcast. All hail the Leisure Illuminati. Hail. I'm Randall James. You'll find me at amateurjack.com and on Twitter and Instagram at JackAmateur.
I'm Tyler Campshow. You'll find me on RPGBOT.net, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, some places, RPGBOT.Net, and most other socials as RPGBot.
And I'm Ash Eli. You can follow me with my minuscule following on Twitter at Graven Ashes. Or if you want to join my games, I need large player groups. I don't have them. Please. You
if
can
you
find
have
me
a large party who wants to play a game together, Ash has got a table for you.
I do. You can find me on startplaying.games, link in the description.
Awesome. All right. So folks, here's what we're going to do. We want to grow this podcast. Having more people listen helps us. So if you were to rate and review us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, that would help us grow. What would be better for you and us? We need you to get a large party together. And with this large party of players, you need to introduce them to this episode of this podcast and then the podcast more generally. And then your gaming time will grow. Our podcast will grow. Everybody's having a great time. We mentioned affiliate links. We do not mention affiliate links. That's a lie. We mentioned source books, other materials during this podcast. We talked about 5e, PF2. There are links in the descriptions to affiliate links. This helps us
do the podcast. It helps us do the podcast.
It helps us do the podcast. There was one time where like I ad-libbed this thing and I feel like it went really good. And at some point I usually just panic and go back to the old read. Folks at home, if you're still with us right now, if you click the affiliate links and you buy sub, it helps us keep doing this podcast. And we like it when you do this. So we really appreciate it. You could also instead support us on Patreon. You could also do both, affiliate links and Patreon. It's great. You'll find all kinds of great rewards at Patreon. At any tier, you'll get early access to RPGBOT.content and polls for future content. At our $3 tiers, you'll enjoy your choice of ad-free access to RPGBOT.net or ad-free podcast episodes and access to live stream podcast recordings. At our $5 tiers and above, you'll get all of that plus access to the RPGBOT.Discord. You'll find us at patreon.com/RPGBOT.
Remember when it first starts, September, letting the clouds away.
Oh. I feel bad for Dan.
Those are all the words I know.
Yeah, I don't remember the words.
No. If you want a cool shirt, a sticker, anything like that, RPGBOT.store.
You were still going. I thought you were done.
No. I feel like that was a good intermission because people were like, I want the podcast to keep going. And then you did their thing and they were like, yes, we're still going. And then we talked about the RPGBOT.store. I feel like it was a win. It was a win for everyone.
This podcast is chaos, is what it is.
All right. Yeah. Folks in chat, we loved having you here. It was great to see you. And we'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.